The clink of crystal glasses and the low murmur of Manhattan's elite fell silent as Miss Harper's pen hovered over a linen napkin. Across the table, Cole Winchester, a young hedge fund superstar known for his viral bravado, smirked over the rim of his whiskey glass. "Go on," Cole drawled, voice dripping with playful challenge. "Predict tomorrow's stock market and my bonus is yours." He chuckled as if the notion were absurd, certain the bet was safe. Ms. Harper's heart fluttered. She released a slow breath. All eyes were on this 68-year-old retired math teacher in her thrift store blazer. She recalled decades of teaching patterns and probabilities to unruly teenagers, lessons in logic and humility. Steeling herself, she met Cole's amused gaze. In a single, fluid motion, she began scribbling figures and symbols onto the napkin between them. Cole raised an eyebrow, taking a casual sip of his drink. But as Ms. Harper finished the final stroke of her equation, his confident grin faltered. The financier froze mid-sip, eyes locked on the napkin. A hush fell over the table, tension crackling in the air.
What would you do if a Wall Street hotshot challenged you like that? Would you take the bet? Let me know what you think in the comments. 24 hours earlier. In her tiny Queens apartment, 68-year-old Miss Eleanor Harper sipped her morning coffee over a crossword puzzle, never imagining she'd be dining with Wall Street's elite by nightfall. Late that morning, Miss Harper received an excited call from Mark Alvarez, a former pupil whose life she'd changed decades ago. Mark was now a rising analyst at a high-flying hedge fund. During the 2008 crisis, Ms. Harper had nearly lost everything, and Mark, then just a rookie trader, helped save her from ruin. She trusted him like family. On the phone, Mark explained that his boss, the famed Cole Winchester, had invited him to a celebratory dinner that evening on the Upper East Side. Mark insisted Miss Harper join them as an honored guest. Despite her protests, "Oh, I wouldn't fit in, dear," he wouldn't take no for an answer. That evening, Miss Harper found herself at Le Majestic, a ritzy rooftop restaurant overlooking the city lights. Clutching her thrifted purse, she stepped out of the taxi, heart pounding. Mark met her in the lobby with a reassuring hug. Soon she was seated at a long table among several of Mark's colleagues, and face to face with Cole Winchester himself. Cole, just 35 and already a legend in finance, greeted her with a charismatic smile. His tailored suit and the deferential silence of those around him made it clear he was in charge. As dinner progressed, Cole dominated the conversation, sharing bold trading exploits and boasting about his lavish lifestyle. Between tales, he politely inquired about Miss Harper's life as a teacher. She answered humbly. He joked that teaching was noble, if not exactly lucrative, and Miss Harper just smiled politely at the jab. When talk turned to the day's stock market swings, Cole bragged how his aggressive moves had seized on a sudden tech rally. As others applauded, Ms. Harper frowned slightly. Something about the timing of that rally felt off, almost too perfect. A faint pattern tickled her memory. Gathering courage, she spoke up. "Markets can seem chaotic, but sometimes there are patterns if you know where to look." A hush fell. Cole arched an eyebrow, amused. A retired teacher hinting she could read the market? He leaned in. "Patterns, you say?" he mused. "Are you implying you can predict what this wild market will do next, Miss Harper?" His tone was light, but a competitive gleam lit his eyes. All attention swung to the unlikely pair. Miss Harper's pulse quickened, yet she stayed composed. "I might, given enough information," she replied calmly. Her quiet confidence hung in the air. Cole's grin widened in incredulity. He loved a challenge, especially one he was sure he'd win.
With a smirk, he declared, "If you can predict tomorrow's stock market movement, up or down, I'll hand over my entire annual bonus." A few diners stared in astonishment. It was a ludicrous sum of money, no doubt. Cole chuckled, certain his money was safe. Mark's eyes widened in concern. This evening had taken an unexpected turn. He caught Ms. Harper's eye and subtly shook his head, silently urging her to reconsider. But Ms. Harper straightened her back, recalling years of teaching students to trust reason over fear. "All right, I accept your challenge," she said gently. Cole beamed. "Excellent," he exclaimed, beckoning a waiter with a flourish. Ms. Harper requested a clean napkin. Heart pounding, she jotted down figures as Cole and the others watched in curious silence. Decades of mathematical intuition guided her hand as she factored in a constellation of variables: closing prices, odd late-day trades, an upcoming Fed announcement, distilling them into a simple equation. At last, she wrote down her conclusion. The market would surge upward tomorrow. Sliding the napkin to Cole, she folded her hands calmly. His smirk wavered as he read her neat handwriting. For a moment he just stared, processing that she had given a definitive answer. Cole blinked, then let out a short laugh to mask his surprise. "Well then," he said, forcing a grin, "we'll see tomorrow if you're right." He raised his whiskey glass. "To Miss Harper's prediction," he announced. Glasses clinked, though an uneasy silence undercut the toast. Dinner soon concluded. Before parting, Cole insisted she join him at his Wall Street office at 9:30 a.m. sharp to watch the market open together. "I'll send a car for you," he offered, trying to sound casual despite a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Miss Harper agreed, tucking the napkin with her equation safely into her purse. That night, back home, she could hardly sleep. Under the glow of her desk lamp, she triple-checked her logic. Could a humble, retired teacher really outsmart a Wall Street titan? The numbers gave her confidence. Still, as the city hummed outside, Miss Harper lay awake, heart thrumming with anticipation. Tomorrow would reveal the truth. Morning light filtered through the steel and glass canyons of Wall Street as Ms. Harper arrived at Winchester Capital's headquarters. The doorman, surprised to see a grandmotherly figure step out of a town car, nonetheless guided her in. Mark met her in the marble lobby, relieved to see her. "You okay?" he whispered, offering a supportive arm. Ms. Harper gave a resolute smile and nodded. Together, they rode the private elevator up to the trading floor. They stepped into a sprawling, high-tech office buzzing with energy. Rows of curved screens displayed live market data. A dozen young traders glanced up from their terminals, eyeing the newcomer with curiosity. News of Cole's outrageous bet had spread through the company overnight. Whispers followed Miss Harper as she passed, some sympathetic, most skeptical or amused. What could a retired teacher possibly know that Wall Street's best did not? Cole approached with his trademark grin, though it didn't reach his eyes. "Right on time," he said lightly, gesturing around the buzzing trading floor. "Welcome to the heart of the beast." Ms. Harper answered with a polite hello, refusing to be intimidated by the glitz around her. A large digital clock on the wall ticked down the minutes to the market open, 9:30 a.m. Cole escorted Ms. Harper to a spot beside his own trading station, where multiple monitors faced a panoramic window. "Front row seats," he quipped. Mark hovered nearby, unable to hide his nervous energy. As the final seconds ticked away, an uneasy silence fell over the room. Miss Harper clasped her hands calmly in front of her, the very picture of poise among the restless millionaires. Cole cleared his throat. "So, up is it? A surge you predicted?" he asked lightly. "There's still time to change your mind," he added with a teasing glint. Ms. Harper simply shook her head. "No changes. Let's see," she said softly. 9:30 a.m. The opening bell clanged. At first, the S&P 500 wavered and even dipped a fraction. Cole smirked and murmured, "Looks like a quiet start." A few traders exchanged knowing grins. Perhaps the teacher's luck had run out, but Miss Harper's eyes remained fixed on the screens. Within minutes, a flicker of movement caught her eye. Exactly what she anticipated. Here it comes. A breaking news alert flashed across a monitor. Fed signals rate hold markets poised to rally. Almost instantly, the index chart ticked upwards, then surged sharply into the green. Shouts erupted as traders watched stocks across the board skyrocket. Phones rang off the hook as everyone scrambled to keep up with the sudden surge. Cole's smile vanished as he stared at the screens. The index climbed faster and higher, exactly as Miss Harper had foretold. By 9:35 a.m., the market was up nearly 2% and climbing. A huge swing by Wall Street standards. A chorus of astonished cheers erupted. Cole quickly tried to mask his shock with a tight grin, but sweat glistened on his temple. Beside Ms. Harper, Mark let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. He turned to her, face shining with awe. You did it," he whispered. Ms. Harper allowed herself a small, relieved smile. The numbers vindicated her completely. Cole adjusted his collar, attempting a light chuckle. "Well, how about that?" he said, voice strained. "Lucky break, huh?" But his eyes betrayed turmoil. He had built a career on being one step ahead, yet this retired teacher had just beaten him at his own game, and not by luck, by outsmarting him. The trading floor broke into scattered applause and amazed laughter. Cole's second-in-command shook his head in disbelief. Cole himself forced a thin smile, and with cameras flashing, gave Miss Harper's hand a perfunctory shake. "Congratulations," he managed through clenched teeth. "I'll have my team wire you the bonus." Onlookers exchanged astonished glances at the reality of his promise. The reporter pushed a microphone forward, eyes wide. "How on earth did you know?" she asked. Ms. Harper met the question head-on. "I'm a math teacher, and numbers don't lie," she replied firmly. "I spotted an unusual pattern in yesterday's trading, one that showed someone knew today's news before it was announced." She held up her napkin of calculations as proof. The figures and timing laid bare. For a heartbeat, silence. Then pandemonium. Cameras flashed as her shocking accusation hung in the air. Cole's charismatic mask cracked. His eyes blazed with panic. Now, before we see how this standoff ends, take a moment to join our community for more powerful stories. If you're enjoying this tale of justice and wit, hit subscribe so you won't miss what comes next. Cole swallowed hard, struggling to maintain his composure. "This is absurd," he spat, though his forced chuckle fooled no one. The reporter had already pulled out her phone to snap photos of Ms. Harper's napkin full of figures. Other cameras clicked. The sensational story of a teacher humbling a hedge fund mogul was too good to miss, and now it had an explosive accusation attached. Pandemonium threatened to erupt on the trading floor. Some of the staff stared at Cole in disbelief. Others hurriedly turned away to avoid the fallout. Mark stepped protectively closer to Ms. Harper, sensing that this was about to escalate. Cole opened his mouth to retort, but no words came. The facts on that napkin spoke louder than any denial. Chaos reigned on the trading floor. Cole's carefully crafted image was unraveling in front of everyone. He clenched his fists, face flushed with a mix of fury and panic. "This is preposterous," he barked at no one in particular, but his protest rang hollow. The evidence Ms. Harper presented was too precise to ignore. Mark stepped forward from the stunned circle of employees. In a trembling voice, he spoke up. I noticed some irregular trades too. Last week when those big orders came in ahead of the Fed news, I thought it was odd." Cole shot Mark a withering glare, betrayal and desperation in his eyes. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he snapped, but the damage was done. Others were beginning to murmur in agreement. Cole's own team had quietly harbored doubts about how he always seemed a step ahead of market-moving news. Now those doubts were exploding into the open. The reporter raised her voice above the commotion, addressing Cole directly. "Mr. Winchester, will you comment on these allegations of insider trading?"
cameras trained on the mogul who, moments ago, was basking in victory and now stood cornered. Cole opened his mouth, searching for a denial, an excuse, anything. But under Ms. Harper's unwavering, knowing gaze and the weight of his staff's eyes, he found nothing credible to say. Two men in dark suits appeared at the elevator, officials from the SEC, alerted by the morning's astonishing events and the flurry of news coverage. They strode forward, flashing badges. "Cole Winchester," one said firmly. "We need to speak with you." A collective hush fell. Cole's face went ashen. For an instant it looked like he might bolt. His eyes darted toward a side exit. But seeing no sympathy in the faces around him, he squared his shoulders. With a last, spiteful glare at Ms. Harper, he nodded and allowed the agents to flank him. As they began to escort Cole away for questioning, he twisted back and pointed at Ms. Harper. His bravado flared one last time. "This isn't over," he snarled, voice echoing. You think you've won? You have no idea who you're dealing with." There was an emptiness to his threat, a man grasping at scraps of pride. Ms. Harper stood calmly, hands clasped, watching him without fear. In her eyes was not gloating, but a gentle pity. The SEC agents guided Cole into the elevator. Just before the doors closed, the reporter called out, "Ms. Harper, one last question. Why did you take this bet?" All eyes turned to the retired teacher. She paused, considering, as the chaotic room fell silent to hear her answer. "I took it to prove something," Ms. Harper replied softly. She glanced around at the young traders, the reporters, and finally at the empty spot where Cole had stood. That knowledge and integrity still have value in this world. That no one, no matter how powerful, is above the truth. Her voice was gentle but firm, carrying the weight of her years of wisdom. Tears glistened in a few onlookers' eyes, including Mark's. A swell of respect filled the room. More than one trader wiped away a tear. Ms. Harper had become the unlikely hero of the moment. Cole was swiftly placed under investigation for insider trading. Ms. Harper asked that his forfeited bonus be used to fund scholarships for math students, turning the ill-gotten gains into something good. In the end, Wall Street had learned a humbling lesson. What do you think about Ms. Harper's story? Did justice prevail in the end? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.